Welcome back, everyone, to the Copper Box Arena as we are counting down towards our opening ceremony and the start of JDG versus BLG. Maybe an unlikely road that they found themselves in these finals, but that doesn't make us any less excited. It is interesting, though, that they have played each other so much this year. Actually, JDG is 11-4 versus BLG, and it's their 4th best of 5.
I mean, these teams are so familiar with each other, right? You know, it's 3 best of 5s they've already played. This will be their 4th today. They played a BO3 in the regular season as well, and JDG won every single one, and the best of 5s have gotten more and more one-sided. Started 3-2, went 3-1 in the finals, and then 3-0 here at MSI.
Yeah, it actually got worse and worse, and JDG themselves talked to us as well about the first round that they played in playoffs, where they were still getting a feel for the meta. They had also, up until that point, not played a series, and we often see that teams need some time to adjust, but then as they got more and more adjusted, it got harder and harder for BLG.
Yeah, and I think that was the big thing, was that BLG actually felt the need to adjust. You talked about them, how they needed to change their draft strategies coming into MSI as a result of what JDG had done to them. So I'm very excited now to see today how they do actually manage to adjust in that draft to set themselves up for success against what's been such a big adversary for them.
Yeah, you could see it any of 2 ways in terms of JDG, of course, coming in with a lot of confidence, knowing we know you like the back of our hand. But BLG saying, okay, well, we trained against you a lot, and this is the moment that we can prove that we can take you down. Now, what has been the name of the game this MSI? Team fighting. It's been so much fun, and it won't be different today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, team fighting has been the name of the game, and to me, JDG have been the kings of team fighting. So I had a couple clips I wanted to go through just to talk about some of the things that have really, really impressed me. This is actually from a fight between JDG and BLG earlier at MSI. The key thing I really want you to pay attention to is how all the JDG members will mark and peel different members on the BLG side. So keep your eyes over here on Ruler. Ruler is going to be that key member pretty much as always in the team fight. It's an RE Vi here for BLG, and they're going to be looking to try to dive him. So as Shun goes forward, in comes the ulti. Now watch what the response is going to be here from JDG. Kanavi right here in the pit, he's going to be moving to actually mark Yagao. We're seeing 369, he's already marking Bin, and Knight as well as Missing are going to move to actually mark these 2 members. So as we roll forward, watch how fast this comes in. Instant flash twisted advance here from the Maokai onto the RE, blocks the charm. Here comes Knight pushing forward, W stun on both members there, and is actually going to flip them in. 369 already waited out the parry, stunned out on the Fiora. Everyone is getting marked simultaneously and completely shutting down the dive to build this space for Ruler. And we know what happens when Ruler gets space, he takes over the fight. And it's just so impressive to me how, whether they're going to be diving, whether they're going to be playing defensively, they're really setting up their AD for success incredibly, incredibly well. So I'm going to jump now into another clip. This is one where they're playing it out a little bit differently. You know, it's not always that they're peeling back for Ruler. They're really going to base it on the momentum of the fight and base it on those opportunities. In this one, you really want to keep your eyes here on 369. He's actually playing the Gragas. He's snuck around. He actually body slammed over the wall right here. And now he's trying to play around vision. They have an idea that there could be a ward here, and he's going to be looking to try to avoid it. So in this fight, it's really all about Guma Yushi. They're going to see this opportunity as 369 is sneaking around the side here to go for Guma. Notice as T1 is actually trying to engage, everyone peels back here on the JDG side. Ruler just avoiding the Maokai twisted advance, and in comes 369. And as soon as he sees his opportunity here to actually jump in on T1's AD, it is a body slam flash, and everyone is immediately going to be following up on it. Ruler stepping forward to fire here. Knight is actually coming in from the side as well. Missing is piling in. Everyone is going to be looking to jump in onto T1's AD and immediately burst him down. And then as soon as he's done, again, it's a swap in priorities. It's now, okay, we've killed the enemy AD. We're all going to have to move back and protect Ruler. Everyone peeling back to get onto Zeus, who's playing this Gwen, and really take him out. And I just think it's so interesting to watch how they team fight and how they're really just one cohesive unit. It feels like it's one mind playing 5 characters at times in these fights because they all know exactly what their role is at any given moment, and they perform it flawlessly.
I also think, as you're highlighting Azil, that being able to play different style of compositions means that you have so much more room in draft. I think LPL teams in general have had a really good meta read here, but given the fact that you could either put 369 on something like a Sion, where he is just pure frontline, but also put him in a Gragas, where he will find those flanks and make the enemy backline scared at any given point, makes them such a hard team to draft against.
And I think it's so incredible to see the growth that we've had from 369 and from Knight. When you think back onto top esports in 2020, there was a massive joke that, well, top esports don't know how to engage, so they just play long range. And a huge amount of this was 369 not being able to facilitate that, Knight not understanding his role. But now that they've come across the JDG, they look like entirely new players. And it's that growth that is making JDG such a deadly team.
Yes, I've always been a little bit annoyed that when sometimes we talk about, myself included, about LPL teams in the past, we talk about there's crappy style and they bring you down to their level. No, you have to step up to theirs because they are so insane in team fights. And one of my questions is, of course, the meta was always going to favor what we see, plays a part. There are other teams that also play very bot heavy and protect the ADC since the dawn of League of Legends. But is it because the LPL was so incredibly strong at playing this that they have formed the rest of the tournament to make them play their style?
I think so, right? I think that the people who are at the top of the table, who are actually leading the way, do kind of dictate the meta, right? They are showing you the best way to play League of Legends right now. It is getting your AD ahead. It is protecting them in that team fight. And if you have Ruler, he is definitely worth protecting. If you have Elk, he is definitely worth protecting.
Absolutely so. And it'll be so interesting to see how today's LPL top lane titans will impact the team fights as 369 and Bin are facing off in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
It is clear that the rivalry between Bin and 369 has shaped the way they play as top laners, and may indeed be the reason why these two are facing each other in the finals today. They have faced the best in every other region, and found that only in the old rivalry from the LPL can they truly find the best challenge.
Bin's behind! Winter's Bite is there, and Ben's coming around! Snip, snip! They force him to go gold, and they shut him down with Ben!
369. Yeah, he is going to flash in. Doesn't manage to get the body slam onto both of them, but it's still going to be fine. The Jinx is taken down, and Carrier just going to vacate the area.
But only one of them will truly be labeled as the best top laner in the world. 369 and JDG were able to win the last time these two faced off, but Bin was able to provide the hope of a comeback for BLG.
It was supposed to be EDG, it was supposed to be Gen G, it was supposed to be T1, but here at MSI, BLG stands strong in defiance of all expectations.
There is no lower bracket for anyone to fall back on now, and no excuses left. Will 369 finally win his first international title, or will Bin defend his? It's time for the featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Let's get it. I mean, we've talked so much about bot lane prowess in general, but these are two teams that also just curb the meta to what they want to do. And since we're starting in the top lane, I think we have a visual aid.
Yes. Me and Rob will do this together.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. So, what are you going to do?
What we have here is a visual aid to showcase, as we get for every matchup, where do we think the advantage lies.
To hold you accountable.
Exactly.
I like it.
No backpedaling.
Don't like that. Don't like that.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
And also, we also have our faces.
Great.
Coincidentally, mine kind of mimics how I felt watching yesterday's series. But Rob, as you can see.
Well, I'm the LPL rep, so
Yeah,
I'm very
he's
happy. I'm
very
incredibly
I
happy.
thought you were in EU. I see you jump sides depending on who wins.
Look, my loyalty's
Classic.
easily bought, you know.
All right, stake your mark, lads.
So let's start with top lane then. Where do you think it's going to go, and who has the best chances?
You get to go first.
Or actually,
Okay.
who's going to make the difference today? That's the
So
context.
this is where I think the most interesting conversation is, because I think when you look at like in lane, I would definitely give it to Bin. I think Bin has been absolutely incredible in actually getting these advantages and putting 369 in his place. But when it starts to teeter in towards the later team fights, that's where I think it starts to become a much bigger win for 369. But as Azale rightly pointed out, his team fighting has been absolutely impeccable.
I mean, he's been on top. I'm not going to put it so far over on 369. I think it's actually pretty even, because I do think that Bin is just such a different style, right? You know, 369 is about playing weak side. Often they're not playing towards him. You know, Shun is going to be playing more heavily towards Bin, getting him ahead. I do think Bin is a monster on carries, but I think that the team fighting side, you know, is definitely to 369, and he has really been able to answer him well historically. So I do think it's a pretty even matchup.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo. So I'm gonna nestle myself right beside him.
Don't want to upset the apple cart.
The main thing to me is that I think that the Bin that we're seeing at this tournament is not the same Bin that we saw domestically, right? I think that he has really shown that, as much as we talked about it, you know, 369 and them trash talking one another, and Bin playing side immediately in solo queue, you know, we've actually seen the impact of this. He has actually been able to be more versatile and not just carry on carries.
But that's the thing, is that the fact that we've had Bin who's managed against 369 in their series, to get solo kills, to get these advantages, it's been about trying to translate them into team fights. And that's where these carries haven't been able to fully perform. And that's where we've actually seen the adjustment, as Chronicler was saying, the shift towards tanks, towards Scions. These are things that have been picked up after being beaten by 369 and has added another layer to the armor and the repertoire that BLG are bringing. So this is going to be the big curiosity for me. What side do we see Bin go towards? I'm sure he's going to bring out carries at least once, and I hope he does get to have that performance.
Yeah, I guess the big question is if Bin can step on stage here as a complete player, a more complete player than he was before this will heavily increase the chances coming out of BLG. But we followed Bin's story so far here, and he's learning English because he watches a lot of WWE, so we found it fitting to make some graphics. And well, yesterday, Zeus is in the pile now too, I guess.
He's just adding to the pile game after game after game, dunking on top laners left and right. But this does not tell the story of the LPL, like we said. They have actually fought against each other, already have 4 series, and 369 came out on top in all 4 of those. He's going to be looking to put Bin in the bin today and make it 5 for 5 on the year.
That's so cool. I heard that it made it all the way to Weibo and like the Chinese community as well, that they love the memes, and you know, we know they do. But it's true, even though it's a meme image, it does reflect what we expect to happen here today, either of those.
Even though I think the individual performance and early laning leads don't matter as much, as Azil was pointing out earlier, the way that your top laner is able to either create space for your AD carry or set up team fights is still extremely pivotal. And if you're not able to deliver on that part, you're not going to be able to get a win.
Definitely so. Well, to introduce our first mid laner today, here's Emily with a finals edition of Draw My Life on JDG's Night.
Draw My Life, Night. Zhou Knight Ding began his pro career on Young Miracles, an LSBL team well known for scouting strong talent. Knight was known pre-debut as a mid-lane prodigy in solo queue. He initially wanted the name Knight and then added the K without knowing that it too was an English word. The prodigious mid laner is from the same city as Yagao. They once played on the same Net Cafe team and have now met in the LPL finals multiple times. Knight was nicknamed the Golden Left Hand by Chinese casters for his mechanical prowess and the fact that he is left-handed. Knight's parents are both very supportive of his esports pro career. His father teaches the game of Go, and he also won some Age of Empires competitions himself. Knight has been to LPL finals 5 times since 2020 and now has 2 LPL titles, including the most recent one. Known for his strong domestic performances for years, Knight has now brought them to the international stage at 2023 MSI.
Thank you so much, Emily. I believe, Dagda, you actually said something when we talked about him being the left-hand king.
Yeah, the reason he's called the golden left hand is because he'd actually swap his hands across. So he'd play with his right hand across his body, playing on the keyboard, and his left hand over his body on the opposite side, playing with the mouse. And he played like that from the start, yeah, until he actually started to get the equipment that was useful for him. But
that's unbelievable. We drew the comparisons the last couple of days about DRX. You know, we had the story of Deft and FLICKR attending the same school. Here's a similar story for Yagao and Knight as well in the same Net Cafe. But I want to focus in on kind of the competitive element and how these two have developed both domestically and on the international plane.
For me, the most important is that Knight has been hyped up as a player that could be one of the best mids in the world, right? For years, we've been hearing the stories, and domestically, we have actually seen that he's been able to live up to that expectation. But I think this MSI, we are truly seeing what this player is capable of. Insane carry performances in almost every single game that we've seen of him.
I mean, he's an absolute beast individually. And I do think, you know, he really does deserve the credit for that. But Yagao, on the other side, I think is deserving of a lot more credit than people have been giving him, right? You know, people coming in MSI were saying, all right, sure, yeah, maybe you're a top 4 team because you're in the LPL, but this guy is going to get clapped by FLICKR, he's going to get clapped by Chovy, he's going to get clapped by Knight, and it has not been the case. He plays his role so well, and in this meta where it's not just about mid lane carries, it's about how you facilitate and enable your team, how you create space for your ADs in a team fight. Yagao has been more than equal to the challenge. He was outperforming both FLICKR and Chovy in back-to-back victories over the LCK teams. And
also specifically for Yagao versus Knight. Yagao, as we kind of saw in that story, like Yagao beat Knight to be the mid laner on their hometown team. And it's always kind of been the demon on Knight's shoulder, where he hasn't always been able to overcome Yagao. Yagao's actually had the better side of that matchup when they've met traditionally, and Knight hasn't performed to the level that we expect when he's set up against Yagao. So certainly when I look at this, I think we'll have to see, especially as they know each other so incredibly well. Yagao sometimes just has that edge against Knight, and we'll have to see if he can do it here again.
Now, after singing all of Yagao's praises, I think it is very Knight favorite.
I'm just gonna. I don't want to seem like I'm.
Are you
always
just
agreeing with Azil, but
you're just covering Azil's face every
Knight
time?
has just been so good this tournament.
Yeah.
And this guy has been impressing me for years and years regionally. You know, I first really started to watch him because of his Syndra play, and that is what I kind of fell in love with, you know, for this player. He is just built different on the carries, and I do think he can actually facilitate and play multiple different styles and roles, which is, I think, what gives him that big edge over Yagao, who I don't think can take over a game in the same way that Knight can.
Yeah, I think especially when you're looking at the meta the way it is, it's kind of hard not to give it to Knight. I'm going to go a little bit more this way, just because Yagao does have this secret special weapon against Knight. I'm not sure what it is, but I definitely do think when we come into this Knight, the matchups that he has, how good he's been, and the fact that we're finally getting to see this guy on the international stage perform. This is what people have been touting about in the LPL for so long, and finally we're getting to see it on the international
I'm
stage.
seeing a trend. I really am. And I know we've undervalued everyone on BLG and BLG every single time, and I didn't think it was going to change.
The sum is greater than the parts.
It's
fine.
Is that what you're going to say at the end?
Yeah, it's
no,
fine.
but obviously fair in your analysis, because that is the expectation that we have. So many interesting matchups, not in the least in the bot lane, because Ruler has a chance to solidify himself as one of the all-time greats today. Let's take a look at his story.
Of all the players in the world, few are as closely associated with one team than Ruler on Gen G, formerly known as Samsung Galaxy. Let's look back at the journey of one of the best players of all time. His career started back in 2016 on a team called Stardust in Challengers Korea. From there, we got the move that would define the next years for both Ruler and Samsung Galaxy as he joined the org in May of 2016. Although Samsung was still experimenting with Stitch and Wraith, it was in 2016 that Ruler joined a fairly freshly role-swapped Core JJ in the bottom lane, and unbeknownst to us, would create one of the most formidable late-game duos the LCK has ever seen. Worlds 2016 was the tournament that introduced the bot lane duo to the international audience, as Samsung made it all the way to the final versus the mighty SKT. After struggling the first two games, Samsung started what looked like a reverse sweep for the ages, forcing a Game 5. But in that deciding game, disaster struck.
He gets devoured by Core JJ, he's in so much trouble. Flashes away to safety, curtain call not up, and Core JJ dies. Why were they so far forward?
A devastating defeat, but Ruler's first year in competitive play had been a huge success and a sign of what was to come. The next year, it was time for the rematch once again in the World's Finals at the Bird's Nest in Beijing. But now the story was different, with Samsung Galaxy taking a commanding 2-0 lead. And when it looked like FLICKR and SKT would bounce back, Ruler saw a chance to redeem himself with one of the most famous plays in league history.
Galaxy push mid first. You see the flash ult left. They've caught Faker. They've got the CC. The mid laner is down. The unkillable Demon King has done just fine. Ruler on the Nexus. The upset is complete as the kills come through. The SKT dynasty is over.
A new king had been crowned, but Samsung Galaxy would quickly be brought down to earth after their triumph. 2018 is a year Ruler and LCK fans would like to forget. Samsung Galaxy had become Gen G, and in the world's group stage on home soil, they would finish last, behind RNG, Cloud9, and Vitality. The LCK era was over. Now, despite his success on the international stage in 2016 and 2017, Ruler was still chasing an LCK title. The next years saw him and Gen G finish second in Spring 2020 behind T1, second in Spring 2021 behind Damwon Kia, and second in Spring 2022 behind once again T1. Ruler kept falling at the last hurdle. But then, in the 2022 Summer Finals versus his arch nemesis T1, the legend finally got to lift the trophy he'd been chasing all this time.
They're going to try Atlas and Gen G. It might not have happened for them before. Ruler about to pick up his first LCK trophy.
Ruler spent 7 years with Gen G. he won 1 LCK title. 1 LCK season MVP, made Worlds 6 times, winning it once and being crowned Worlds Finals MVP in 2017. But after a 3-1 loss to DRX in a dramatic semifinals at the Madison Square Garden, his legendary career with Gen G came to an end. The team put their faith in the rookie Pays, while Ruler made the move to the LPL and powerhouse JDG. So far, 2023 has been a massive success for Ruler, and surrounded by the superstars of JDG, he's continuing an amazing career by winning the LPL, making his first ever MSI, and now just 1 win away from lifting the title.
What an unbelievable story. Ruler could be the second player to win LCK, LPL, MSI, and Worlds, the other being Deft. And just looking at that, Chronicler, it's giving us goosebumps.
Yeah, I thought I'd gotten over Ruler. A guy that is so, you know, oh, I'm the best. I'm going to dunk on everyone. Cry when he finally won his title. But seeing that, I need a moment.
I mean, it's incredible, right? And he's walking into the finals today as, I think, heavy favorites, right? And if he is able to win, as you say, Shox becomes only the second player to really pull off that achievement. Worlds, MSI, the 2 massive international events, and also taking a title in the 2 hardest leagues in the world by far. You have to think that that really does start shooting him up the rankings for potentially being the greatest AD carry of all time.
I'd love to talk about it. We have some time. Would he be for you?
I definitely think he's up there. I think you were kind of talking backstage about the fact that he's not only been so good, but it's been about how long he's been there as well. Also just the fact that the titles are starting to come through for him. He's won across both regions. It feels very difficult to not put him up there. And like, there are people that you'd look at, like the likes of Uzi, and people are like, oh, maybe this guy is up there. But the lack of titles, this is where, even though he hasn't really had that longevity now that he's left the scene, this is where he started to put question marks on it. But Ruler's kind of answering a lot of those questions.
Yeah, particularly in a role that's as mechanically intensive as AD carry, I think, to me, like being in the amongst the best AD carries in the world for what, like 6-7 years now is an incredible feat.
So is anyone willing to put their money where their mouth is and say if he wins today, that's definitely it, best bot laner ever?
That's I want to be able to say it, but when you look at like the world championships that we've had that are coming through for the likes of guys who are on SKT and that, it's very difficult to start putting that
think it's so hard to contextualize, right? Because I think you can definitely say he's the greatest ever modern AD carry, right? You know, of this current era. It's so hard to compare to someone like Bang, though, right? Who won back-to-back world championships, who won back-to-back MSIs. You know, those 4 international titles within such a small time was so incredible. But Ruler is making history once again. He's actually topping the kills per game record as far as international events. He's averaging 7.1 kills per game throughout this MSI. If they were to win today, there is a very high chance that he actually will hold that record, as it has been all about him, and he's really turning in. 7 years into his career, one of the best performances ever.
What does he have to do? Does he have to get 5 pentakills today or what?
I mean, if there is someone that is calling for a penta the moment he gets a kill, it is this guy. Okay, I've heard so many comms over the years of, you know, they start setting up a kill and Bruno's like, penta, 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 give it to me. No player in the LCK does it as much as him.
Yeah, but I think it is a very big story for Ruler about, and kind of a lot of guys that we see move across from the LCK and the AD carry road to the LPL, about how good they are at setting up those AD carries for success and turning them into nearly the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, we've seen it with Deft, and we've even seen it with Elk, I think, this tournament, right? Elk came in and has, like many players, as we keep going back to for BLG, not necessarily been a guy that many were talking about, right? Gumayushi obviously was talked about a lot. Pace, even though he was a rookie, was at the forefront of the conversation. But when push comes to shove, Elk outperformed him so heavily, so aggressively, and I think he was a really big part of why BLG played as confidently as
they did. And they played so many back-to-back best-of-5s. They played the most hard-to-play matchups the whole tournament. Surely that will be reflected in our board.
I mean, Elk, to me, can get to that level, but I just don't think he's there quite yet. You know, I think the difference between these players is less about the peak within the team fights. We know that Elk has the mechanics and can really pull it off. To me, it's more about how mistake-prone he is.
Yeah.
And I think that is really the kind of Achilles heel for this player, is that he has had those moments where he gets too aggressive, he goes a bridge too far, and a team like JDG will absolutely rinse you when you make those kind of mistakes. Ruler on the other side, it feels like he never really has stepped a foot wrong very often in this tournament.
He actually, and this is specifically because I've watch some of those players. He has one moment this tournament where he had to flash in his classic ruler spot, which is like right between tier 1, tier 2, where he does have a tendency to get caught. But you know, you go first, Rob. I don't want to see like him following Azil every time.
I think we're forgetting a little bit about these supports that are here as well. I think On has had an absolutely incredible tournament, especially over the last couple of times. But on the opposite side, Missing and Elk used to play together. If there's anyone who knows Elk's tendencies, it is going to be Missing from their WE days. The fact that like they actually separated because they wanted to play the game so differently, I think is super interesting. So I'm going to go a little bit closer to this side. I'll just cover fully Azel's Fed as well.
I purposely did not do that. Come on, Rob.
We have to keep the train going. We have to keep it going.
The bullies.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing, obviously, we haven't talked about jungle yet, and I think jungle is going to be such an X factor here. And while I would traditionally say, you know, Kanavi in the LPL, I think, has performed a lot better, I think Shun has been such an X factor for this team. I know we are going to talk about it. You have some cool telestrators to show us, but to me, if Shun can continue performing at that level and be that difference to really get his bot lane ahead, I think that can overcome potentially some of the skill gap in the bot lane. So I am kind of excited to see if Shun can really turn in these same levels of performance.
I'll help you then, T1, so you'll push your face over here.
Yeah, I am going to put it on Shun's side because I do think he has turned in 2 incredible series back-to-back. I think he was such a huge reason for those wins.
Yeah, I think the last 2 series Shun has played have been absolutely incredible. The way he was able to track the enemy jungler, he was always in the right place at the right time, splitting the map when he needed to. And I think Kanavi has had incredible carry performances, so I actually don't know where this one's going to go. So I'm going to slam it right down there in the middle. I think with the way Shun's performing,
finally we get some disagreements. I'm going to go more over here. I think that as good as Shun has been, I do 100% agree with you. Kanavi, to me, has been one of the smartest junglers of the tournament, and I don't think that Shun is going to be able to do what he did against T1 yesterday, right? Where the continuous bot dives were a really big part of why they were able to get so far ahead in the team
fight.
fight.
I have to give them some hope.
Yeah, for sure.
I know Kanavi is really good.
He's really good.
We got to put one head on this side.
But I'm glad you brought it up in terms of the bot dives. It happened over and over and over, and T1 just didn't seem to get the memo, Rob, but we expect that JDG will.
Yeah, and we're going to take a look at this on the telestrator here, because I think the big thing that you have to look at is not only the fact that Elk has been able to split the map, but how they execute on these dives as well. I want you to keep your eyes on as this clip rolls through, because we're going to see this continuously happen with the Lulu as we go through a few of these, which is just how much On is doing in these. Always tanking, always setting up, and this constant juggle that we're seeing coming through. You catch it again, Elk and On have already made these incredibly aggressive trades, and you can just see how low Gumayushi is, and it's become such a signature of these dives as they start to roll on through, that Elk and On have just been taking these hyper-aggressive trades, but they're always having On just barely on the edge of range, making sure that he's able to set up the plays. So they're juggling these health bars so incredibly well, and it's making it so hard for teams like T1, for other members, to really deal with the dive, because you want to try and dive on the Lulu, but On has been positioning so incredibly well on the back of these and making it nigh on impossible for anyone to turn these around for BLG.
Well, I just think it's so interesting because most teams, and traditionally the logic is, unless you can actually slow stack the waves, zone them off XP, and do a level 3 jungler, 2 level 2 bot laners against a level 1, people don't usually dive that, right? These are level 2 bot lanes against level 2 bot lanes with only +1. It's 3 versus 2 dive. They're getting 2 kills. They're almost never giving a kill back. Like, it is really, really impressive, and I just think T1 weren't prepared for it because very few teams will actually go for that, because if it goes even the slightest bit wrong, all of a sudden you actually get all killed, and it's a disaster.
It also highlights, I think, a really big stylistic difference, which is that in the LPL, and this is also the reason why we've seen players like Deft and Viper really level up their laning, every single minion is contested so much more aggressively. And I think Elk and On really embodied that every time they step forward, went in with the Lulu, with the Zeri. And as a result, you know, even with the summoner still up, the health bar so low, they can set up the dives.
And we can be thankful to them that we don't see Jinx Aphelios every game, because Elk's actually phenomenal on Zeri and has not been afraid to pick that in the first game of a series. So much between these players and these two teams. So let's take a look at who the fans predicted to win in our MasterCard fan predictions. And I believe this may be the closest one. There was a similar one before, but here we go.
The fans are starting to believe.
Yes.
I mean, Bilibili Gaming started to come out very closely, JDG. And I mean, look, when you look at them in that first series that they played in the LPL, it was incredibly close. All 5 games, one fight away from maybe going the way of BLG. And with how BLG are performing at the moment, they definitely look like they're on form to go against JDG.
We haven't seen JDG for a few days either, right? So maybe people are like, okay, well, how strong is this team actually? It can't be that bad.
I mean, I just think it's one of those things where it's like it's so easy to look at these last couple series from BLG where they weren't supposed to beat Gen G. That was supposed to be a 3-0 or a 3-1. Okay, they made that happen. Then you're like, well, maybe they could beat Team 1. They did pretty well against Gen G, and then they beat them too. And it starts to feel like everything that you're looking at these teams on paper and saying JDG should be favored kind of starts feeling like maybe that should go out the window because they were supposed to lose to all these other teams, and they won there too.
And what's important as well is the way in which they won. It wasn't, you know, like it wasn't scrappy. They were very much in control. They dropped one game against the #1 and #2 LCK seed, right? It felt like they were in control for many of the, or basically the entirety of many of the games. And it's going to make you rethink, even though we've seen this matchup so many times this year.
True. Thank you so much to the fans also for voting every single day. You've got a pretty good win rate. Thank you for checking in with @MastercardNexus on Twitter. Do it for the next event as well. It really helps us, even though we don't really know what's going to happen today. We're only a few minutes away from the opening ceremony presented by MasterCard. A quick reminder for all viewers here in the venue and at home. The following program contains imagery that may cause discomfort for our photosensitive viewers. For the audience in venue, please remain seated during the performance. Now, let's zoom out for the final few moments before the series. And when we look at the holistic picture, what has shaped our global esports for League of Legends internationally for so many years. We've seen a fair bit of LPL dominance, but it is the very first time we get LPL versus LPL in a final.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's never happened at Worlds. Obviously, this is the first time it ever could have happened at MSI, and immediately it does happen. You know, this has been the LPL's tournament from the very beginning. You know, EDG, you know, winning that first one all the way back with the famous Morgana counterpick on LeBlanc, who, when FLICKR was undefeated on this pick. They have had history with this tournament. RNG winning it 3 times. LPL has won 4 of the last 5 MSIs as well. They've already secured their Liga win, and now it is just up to these 2 teams trying to make history for themselves and for their teams and take that title.
But still, some of that legacy does live on. Like, Tabe is still here with BLG. Bin is still here, the defending champion here. So I'm excited to see if they can grow that legacy once more for themselves, but now for a very different roster in BLG.
And cool that we have these 2 converging stories coming out of the LPL. JDG, the super team to end all super teams. I've seen some stories where it doesn't work out the way that you want it to. So what is different about this super team?
Well, I'm going to loop it back to what Azil was saying earlier, right? Like, is this a DRX story or is it the Suning story? Because Dom1 was very similar in that they were so dominant when they won Worlds in 2020. And right now, JDG looks almost impossible to beat. The level of cohesion that these players have with one another and the fact that they actually live up to their individual skill levels is what makes them seemingly unbeatable.
Yeah, especially when you look at, like, historically, 369, who was one of the best laners that we had. Now, Bin has kind of stepped up to take that mantle a little bit, but Knight in a similar boat. Ruler and Missing have been unstoppable. Their laning phase is incredible. You had Kanavi, who's been one of the top junglers in the LPL for so long, and then add in the fact that, as you were saying, they all seem to be mind-controlled by one thing. It's like, it feels so difficult to beat this squad.
Well, and that's the difference, right? You ask why this super team and not the others, to me, is not 5 incredible individuals playing League of Legends. It is 5 incredible individuals playing as one cohesive unit, and that is why they're really exceeding expectations.
But who would win? The most storied, experienced, best fit for a super team or a ragtag team of BLG players who have showed you all wrong the whole tournament?
You can see me on this, right? I'm all the way over at the JDG side. But you know, I actually talked to one of the LPL casters, Munchables, and he told me about the principle of mojo. And let me tell you, when you include that, maybe we move some of the faces. You know, maybe we go a little bit further this way.
Here, look.
And maybe, just maybe, BLG can get it done today.
Here, look, we'll stick that on there.
Boom!
I love
it. We'll stick that there.
Thank you. This is very scientific. I mean, it just goes to show that you can predict and you can try to predict and you can take the parameters of what you have seen so far this tournament, but it's all going to have to go down on this stage. Whoever steps onto it with the most grinta, with the biggest focus. And with that, we are less than a minute away from the MSI 2023 Grand Finals. And what a historic success it has been for the LPL. The current best region in the world is fighting it out for their 5th MSI title on the stage here today. Who will take the trophy? JDG's super team or the Cinderella story of BLG? It's time for the opening ceremony presented by MasterCard.
Didn't do recon, but they wanna lead him and guide him astray, then tip him off axis. I was in the belly of the beast, meanwhile, they was cutting man deep like sickle or mantis. I've been winning off practice, not clout or digital captions. World's in madness, how am I gonna manifest greatness if I don't make actions? I don't need reasons, I just need money and power and stat lift. I don't wanna do it like that or like that or like that. That member's too underhanded. Big man said they ain't landed. Never gonna profit off gladness. Never got a dollar of sadness, but I've been sunk so I don't do sanctions.
Everything that crown sees soon. Feel it weighing down on my shoulders. Rules are meant to break, but proudest wounds. Money on my head, cause I'm lawless. They cannot relate, walking down this road. Getting straight, ain't no debate. Rules are meant to break, but the proudest wounds.
Came in this game with a serious killer instinct, man, I never did courses. Look all the times in the past they rejected him, now they wanna imitate patterns and forces. Caught him, stone eye vision like Gorgon's moving. Terrified look in his eye when he finally realized all of the weapons that he brought to the war ain't forming. I've been giving this heart and body and soul and mind and organs, not to my fingers bled. Now it's all skeleton keys and walkies. Treading with means and caution, man, I had bellies to feed for morning. So if they start selling me dreams, I'm walking. Yeah. I wasn't comfortable, man, I was scared. Looking for solace and they wasn't there. Now I'm a problem and they wouldn't dare. Yeah, yeah. Doubling down for this game isn't fair. Reloaded the dice, I came in prepared. Beating this soul out of body, I feel like I'm floating on air. How do you cope when they never gave you hope? Really left you in the cold, and it's weighing heavy on your soul. To be honest, I don't know. Either way, I had to grow, get it together, whatever the weather, and carry that tribulation to the...
MSI 2023!
Just like that, BLG come alive!
Oh my god, JDG, how are they finding these moments? BLG combo in the middle lane, and they are dominating!
Are you kidding me? This man refuses to lose! Can't keep getting away with this, Ruler!
There's just so much damage! The Cyclone behind them!
JDG find the win once more!
Oh, beautifully done! The job from
Yakau's not done!
That is unstoppable!
Knight both starts and ends the fight in one move.
He's dead! Oh my god! Kanabi knows this is just free money, free food. Kill that dude, Kanabi!
Oh, look at that damage! He'll be taken down by On!
Oh, he flashed in! Bin puts him in the bin!
But there's another fight on
They just can't touch this man.
Just too damn good! JDG might just be the best damn team fighting team in the world!
BLG!
Rules are meant to break, but proudest wounds. Money on my head, cause I'm lawless. They cannot relate, walking down this road. Getting straight, ain't no debate. Rules are meant to break, but the proudest wounds.
跟奈特其实从很小的时候就认识了，然后那时候我们两个还没有成为职业选手，那时候只是在网吧相遇。
我和瑶瑶也是，就比赛上也会经常交流这种中单的细节吧，也是给他搜了过很多次，就在游戏上也会互相帮助的，就都会进步。
但是我那个时候我就感觉到，我跟他以后一定会在顶峰相见的。想说，老弟已经让你赢了我3个 BO5了，这次决赛，哥哥就把冠军拿走了。
2017년에 롤드컵을 중국에서 하면서 많은 팬분들이 응원해주셨던 게 기억에 많이 남습니다. 그 이후로는 좀 되게 나는 뭔가 제가 좀 어쨌든 이렇다 할 막 성적을 많이 못 내가지고 저한테는 이번 MSI를 우승하게 된다면 룰러라는 선수가 좀 한 단계 더 성장하는 그런 계기가 될 수 있다고 생각하고.
In this fight, that's Rafika somehow manages to curve the anchor, and it's a double kill now for Zeus, but the re-engage is gigantic.
It was supposed to be EDG, it was supposed to be Gen G, it was supposed to be T1, but here at MSI, BLG stands strong.
可能有点金多狗吧，但是我们知道我们最后一天会击败他们。我觉得那一天就是今天。
Bin going mega, finding one, he uses an R of his own. Oh, Giga Bin, don't miss.
左手将引领未来。
My right hand will knock you out。
我们已经连续3次输给，我们连续输给3次京东 B5嘛，然后但是我觉得事不过三，这次我们一定赢。
I will become the king.
Are you ready for Giga Bin?
Welcome everyone to MSI Grand Finals 2023 here in the Copperbox Arena in London. I'm Medic, that's Vedi, and in the middle of the Medi-Vedi sandwich we've got some Kobe beef.
The British
for the
caster
finals.
sandwich. I love all the British casters.
I'm so excited to be here. The energy in the arena is electric right now. We've got a grand finals between two brothers, the LPL finals, the first ever international LPL final. The rise to dominance of these LPL teams. I'm more than ready to get into the game.
So many storylines behind these two teams, behind these players. How cool was that intro too? Highlighting the heroes on these teams. Knight, the golden left hand of the LPL, but Bin says he's gonna knock you out with his right. Whew.
Honestly, the entire opening ceremony presented by MasterCard into that video have got me so hyped up. I'm a little teary-eyed, I'll be honest, Kobe, as we get into the draft for Game 1. JDG elected the blue side.
And everybody knows, BLG are massive underdogs here. JDG has beat them already this year in 3 best-of-5s and a best-of-3. But really, this story is about the growth of BLG over this tournament. I think one of the biggest things they've done in an AD carry meta is make that adjustment of banning away the Jinx to then spam either Zeri or Jinx and have Elkon a premier team fight carry for later, and really prioritizing that Lulu. JDG giving that respect to Bin, where they have been banning this Gwen.
Well, the last time that they met Rakan was a really important pick here at MSI. We'll see if BLG choose to remove it, because I'm sure that they were not expecting the Gwen ban. The Ahri will be taken away from Knight. We now look at some of these priority picks. Will it be the AD carries? Will it be jungle? Maokai, of course, another jungle pick that has been very important in terms of when these two met and throughout the tournament. But Jinx is going to be locked in for Ruler.
It's interesting because all of the hyper carries also want the Lulu to be paired with them, and then it kind of forces the other team to go for like a Blitzcrank, bottom lane support, kill lane into the Lulu. So that's why BLG, yes, they prioritize that Lulu over grabbing the other hyper carry first, so that they know they're going to have that late game in the bag. This is something that they have evolved throughout this tournament to do.
JDG do have the Wukong available, though. Typically, it's paired very well with the Annie, but with the Rakan stop and available, I did wonder if they would consider the Blitzcrank, but missing and on, both are very proficient Rakan players. JDG will grab that for themselves. Now, expectations are that they'll try and match with the jungle, but wow, okay, taking a different direction, hovering the Jace right now.
Yeah, because whenever you see Maokai jungle, you think about the 2 mid lane AD champions, the Tristana, the Jace, and so JDG going to presumably take this one away, maybe ban the other, as BLG should pick up AD carry.
Yeah, I really want to look towards that Zeri, most likely alongside the Lulu. Elk has already shown us, but of course the Aphelios does a very similar thing. Jinx has been winning out on the Jinx-Aphelios matchup, though, over the last few days. I think the record is 20 wins to Jinx and only 12 wins in favor of the Aphelios.
We'll see how things pan out today. Of course, both Ruler and Elk very proficient on both the Aphelios and Jinx sides. The Jace early priority. I guess JDG expecting that the AD carry to come through means that they have a little bit of flexibility how they can even target ban even more. Remember that you can flex this Jace to both top and mid.
Love that. When you have the Maokai, you're always worried about the ultimate getting stolen. They ban out the Sylas. See about JDG here as far as their focus. Is it going to be continued on Bin, or are they going to actually try and take away things from Yagao, like the Tristana, like some of maybe those utility supportive style mid lanes?
wonder if Yagao will even consider the Talia if JDG want to try and remove it. Right now, top lane is being banned away. Okay, so this heavily suggests that this Jace is heading towards the top side of the map. Wouldn't be surprised to see something like the Jax taken away as well.
So what about Sion here then? Because 369 is the top laner that made Bin question his whole approach to the game and start spamming tanks. So if all of these bans are going towards Bin from JDG, are they worried about 369, you know, picking up that sign with all the protection here?
Did it the last time they played here at MSI. It didn't work out too well for BLG. They did manage to do that initial invade, but weren't able to get enough of a lead for that to snowball for them. Sejuani now banned by BLG. And we'll see if JDG decide, as you said, Vetti, maybe a supportive pick in the mid lane like the Nautilus. Instead, that's worked its way all the way through into our second round of picks.
Okay, so what will BLG choose to do? The safe approach here is to just lock in the Sion. With it up and available, you know that it will be a fine matchup into the Jace, so of course you will get bullied, but you can create that split map, already put pressure on the bot side of the map very early. It's something that we've seen Bin play to great success multiple times, but you have to question, is this something that JDG want to come through? And wow, so Yagao going to be picking Syndra into the Syndra god himself now.
Yeah, steals it away from Knight. Knight, the undefeated this year, Syndra player, 9-0. They yoink it away, and that means we're going to have to see 369 tank first.
Gragas have it, of course. All right, locked in. Still a lot of flexibility on the side of JDG. Don't really know where everything is going, but if they lock this in, we'll get a pretty good idea. The damage on the side of JDG a little low, but I think that when you have the Jace and the Jinx, it should be fine overall. Expectations are that you would end up putting this Gragas in the jungle, and then you would end up putting this Nautilus mid.
And a lot of the power of a composition like this from JDG comes from killing the first target. You get people poked down, Gragas goes in, or you get a good hook, and the Jinx starts to get excited, and that's when you can really run away with the game. When your AD carry is set up for success, it tends to win you games. Looks like, though, BLG with the Kennen going all the way through the draft might just be drafting an incredibly strong team fight composition for themselves.
The last time they met, Kennen was perma-banned, always removed, but we also know that Bin is an incredibly confident Jax player. This is the champion that, well, everyone really knows him for, and he's going to be locking it in. So comfort for BLG in the top lane. I wonder how, of course, we'll wait to see exactly where everything goes from JDG. Expectations are that this Gragas will be going into the jungle, the Jace will be going top, and then the Nautilus mid. But are JDG going to surprise us? Are they going to do something completely different? Again, we'll wait for the timer to run out before we confirm. But for BLG, kind of stock stand of what we've been seeing at this tournament. A lot of great peel from both the Syndra and the Lulu. The engage is very strong with the Maokai. And of course, Bin's Jax will always find ways into the fight.
Exactly. They stay true to themselves here. At least in game number 1 of a best-of-5 series.
Gents, they didn't swap.
I like this.
That is a Nautilus jungle
for Kanavi.
One of the reasons that people don't like jungling the Nautilus is because the move speed is one of the lowest base move speeds in the entire game. But the way in pro play where it's all about jungle, playing 4 lanes and kind of being a follower to the rest of them, he's just looking to peel for Ruler and Knight.
Obviously, you can use your dredge line to get onto terrain. It refunds some of the cooldown on it and gives you some of the mana back, but what a surprise. In game 1, we thought the Naut was a two-way flex between support and mid lane. Instead, JDG show us that they can play it wherever they damn well please. Nautilus jungle to kick off the MSI 2023 Grand Finals.
I love it. The trick's coming out already. Let's get into it. Continuing the rivalry here. JDG versus BLG all year long. And now the battle between Knight and Yagao again. They made their way all the way here to London. 5,664 miles from their home city, where they grew up together, playing in the same PC cafe. They will now fight for an international title.
And it was Yagao who used to win those battles when they were playing in that PC cafe. He was the king of Pingshong. And we'll see if perhaps the Knight can dethrone him here in London. Not too much happening in the early game. We see both teams setting up a bit of a line of scrimmage. A ward from BLG over towards this blue buff. We'll see where Kanavi decides to start. And I think BLG will probably be as surprised as the rest of us with the fact that this Nautilus is being piloted in the jungle.
Curious as to where he starts, and BLG very interested in knowing that information. Wards dropped on both red and blue. We'll see what direction he chooses to go. Looks like that he's likely to start on the Raptors. Gragas going to make his way up or 369 rather, through the blue to see if anything sneaky is going on. Bin should get a good trade. Nice bot back from 369.
Taking advantage of the AoE here on Nautilus. Love it from Kanavi already. Of course, starting the E on Raptors. You know everybody's going to want to try and copy this. I apologize for solo queue immediately after. As soon as you see something like this,
I mean, the one benefit is solo queue's on 13.10, right? So you can't really bring out these strategies as easily.
I mean, Kobe, you've been casting for, well, forever. Do you remember when Nautilus Jungle used to be the meta? It's very old school. It's been a while since we saw it, but... I
mean, Kobe was probably there the last time it was played, actually, because it was 2015 by Xsmithy in the NALCS, the last time we saw it in a Tier 1 region.
Yeah, Jake performing quite well with it. Meanwhile, Kanavi here, he is just going for the red side clear down towards bottom. After Krugs, kind of leaning, he's leaning towards bottom side here. So presumably you're going to play off of your bottom lane. Missing and Ruler do have the advantage as far as minions.
They have the, as you rightly said, Kobe, push, which means that Kanavi, I mean, Elk and On should be suspicious of this Nautilus being on the bot side of the map. He's looking for it.
On flashes away. Void's missing. Missing takes a chunk in return. Equilibrium, long-range headshot there. Takes the Rakan down to 100 HP, but he'll be able to recall, and with the wave pushing in, they shouldn't lose too much in that bottom lane.
Kanavi here on the Nautilus is super supportive as well, by the way. He's gone Font of Life in his runes to try and get that extra little bit of healing.
Ruler's in trouble.
Missing has left. BLG stepping forward, the heal, the flash. Twisted advance in from Shun, the knock back with Bramble Smash. Ruler will escape under his tower.
Yeah, really good cleanse there from Ruler. You have to get to the other side of that Bramble Smash, or else it's going to push you towards Elf, towards On, and you go down. So Ruler spends both of his summoner spells. Well done, but also now he's going to be a huge target. And BLG, Elk hits the snipe there. They have done such a good job of targeting bottom lane in all of their previous series, bringing down Shun, going for tower dives on bottom lane, ganking over and over.
I mean, guess who's back?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to. The wave state is in a fantastic spot for BLG. Shun is just hovering around. Ruler feels very uncomfortable right now, and he knows that his jungler's on the top side of the map. There's no way that Kanavi can really support, so Shun's happy to spend all the time
Flash
in the world.
forward from Elk. The heal coming out from Ruler puts the flame chompers down as well. They'll land the knockup, they'll land the zap, and even though the root goes down onto Missing, he should be able to walk away.
Bit of an ambitious play from Elk, but still able to force them back, and now he should be able to push the wave underneath the tower.
I see what he's trying to do there. He wanted to use up the rest of his bullets to get his purple gun out, but he couldn't use them all up in time, so the purple gun came a little late.
Kanavi sees a window to steal away enemy Raptors because of the amount of time that Shun has been hovering around bot. Those top camps from Kanavi haven't been cleared. Same for the bot camps from Shun, but Kanavi with a small advantage being able to find that steal. The bot lane, though, from JDG struggling in this early game. And it all comes off the back of JDG trying to find that early pick. Kanavi doing a full bot side clear into that early gank meant that Shun, already pathing bot, had a very clear window where he could actually find that punish. And the fact that they knew Missing, given his low health, was forced to go back to base, they saw that Ruler was alone, and they did a great job of looking for those plays. So BLG have really set up their bot lane for success. Ruler has now been able to find a base, but that deficit is something they'll have to find a way back from.
The net gain is only about a minion wave, right? In terms of summoners, BLG have burnt all of theirs in the bot lane. Missing still has his flash, but you can see a slight gold lead, about 100 in advantage for Elk.
And you always have to point out, yes, it's one minion wave, but a minion wave on the bottom side of the map can balloon into an entire game now.
Especially when you have a low mobility AD carry like the Jinx. Before she gets Gale Force, no real escape tools. It'll be very tricky to navigate the early game. Bing going in as the top laners butt heads, but not really too much expected to happen here as 369 trades back in, but Shun is looking for the gank. 369 has the flash, uses it to escape, and will survive the gank.
All right, summoner spells on top side. Contrary to popular belief, they actually do matter.
Okay.
Especially, you know, we're almost at 6 minutes here, so you start thinking about Rift Herald since your flashes that are blown now will not be back for that 8-minute timer. Kanavi, though.
With the gank down towards the bottom lane, knock up onto Elk, but he's behind the tower. The flame chompers coming out, Missing almost dies to the turret shots. Ruler takes 2. He will not fall, but Missing will. Another hook coming in from Kanavi. He's going to tank another tower shot as On begins to chase him down. I don't think he can really go too much further.
Missing went back in there, and he did not respect the power of the Lulu going down, giving the trade kill there. Could have been a little bit smoother for JDG.
Still, a well-executed play from JDG. Kanavi's back will be interrupted.
Oh!
Not quite able to interrupt that of Rulers. But in an ideal world, you'd love for Ruler to get that kill. Knight has found Shun, but I don't think he wants to go for this trade, knowing that Yagao is right there.
But because BLG know the enemy jungler has been forced away, they can play towards this dragon. You can see Missing and Knight trying to stop it from happening. Knight down to about 30% mana, but with Yagao here, with Shun here, with On here, it should be an easy enough secure for BLG.
Yeah, and we're seeing the reason why in Champions League we're kind of talking about looking for, oh, Missing's going to pop in just for a little look. In Champions League we're talking about why you usually want to focus towards attack damage mid laners to be paired with that Maokai. We've had a easy rush on Merc Treads for Knight, and that combined with the phase rush, he's so slippery, they're not able to lock him down. Still though, BLG, they stay true to their game plan. Go bottom, get the early dragon stacking for you.
I mean, just great adaptation from JDG after their bot lane was put in a bit of an awkward spot earlier. They didn't even have a massively stacked wave, but they're still able to find that dive just because of information they had. Remember that Jun, because he spent so much time on the bot side of the map earlier, he needed to go and clear his top side camps, and this meant that the two junglers were always mismatched from one another. So there was a very big window for JDG to find a clean dive, largely uncontested. Both junglers right now, just really great awareness on the map of finding their windows. And again, you can see if you look at the base, or the minimap rather, Maokai nowhere really there to offer support. The initial knock-up from Missing means that he can tank the tower, then the follow-up from Kanavi means that Ruler actually takes the aggro, which is better setup. Of course, the Airy, thank you observers for highlighting that, ends up getting the execution down onto Missing, which means that it ends up being a 1-for-1 overall.
All right, the repeat visit. Kanavi setting up super deep vision for repeat plays towards bottom side.
I think they read it though. You can already see on the map, Jun immediately pathing towards bot, but the pressure from Knight in mid is making it harder for Yagao to really offer any assistance. He doesn't have his TP available, but Shun wants to be in a position to stop this dive.
Now Shun spotted on a ward. We'll see it with the sweeper as well. Knight and Kanavi decide they don't want any more of that action as they back away. Kanavi can step back forward. Not the best guns if you want to try and tower dive an Aphelios. The Severum Crescendum, probably the most powerful combination in short range that the Aphelios can muster.
But JDG do get themselves a plate, so overall still a win. And the pressure continues. Just once again, great awareness from Shun, knows where he needs to be on the map. Kanavi, though, getting a bit creative here. Will he find a mid-dive?
Good look for it. Yagao does have that scatter the weak. Kanavi's going to try and walk up, get the auto down. Knight now on the chase. Kanavi tanking the tower. Scatter the weak has been used, but it won't be enough as JDG secure a kill and a plate in the mid lane.
Jungle Nautilus coming to a solo queue game near you, courtesy of Kanavi. The auto attack still goes off because unless you flash out of vision into the pocket of Fog of War, still going to complete it. We do have 369 getting the ultimate, but it just knocks him directly in place against that wall, so Bin shrugs it off.
Props to JDG. They're finding a lot of great plays on the map. They found the dive in bot, they find another dive in mid, and Yagao, very little that he could do there. He flashed away for most of the CC, but still enough damage now. BLG on the attack themselves.
369, no flash, gets a knockback flash forward by Bin, popping the ultimate as well as they look for the damage down on this Gragas, but he's a tanky boy and he's difficult to kill. One more order will be enough, and Bin secures it.
Oh, he had a couple seconds left on his flash there. 369, so close for him. They squeeze out that timing window, but it's a big kill.
Knight flashing forward as well, and Bin can do nothing but be put in the trash. Meanwhile, around the Rift Herald, Missing going low, he tries to flash away. The Moonlight Vigil did connect, and Missing will be put in the dirt, and now BLG are looking for more of a fight, they're looking for more of a fray. But JDG will just back away.
BLG have the numbers advantage in the river for now, but no, 369 has TP'd into mid lane. JDG don't want to give this up.
Shun's going to get forced away here. Doesn't have that ultimate right now. BLG trying to gain that mid lane prio, but Ruler and 369 will be able to answer El. Yagao perhaps looking for a scatter of the week, just short on Ruler. As in the end, after a brief skirmish, we see both the teams just reset to mid.
Rift Herald is worth so much now. We've seen so many games won and lost around this objective, and they're not willing to give up on it.
The last time these teams met, they fought over every single neutral, and it looks like things will not change. They're waiting for Kanavi to join the fray. JDG, though, they're not in a great position right now. They will force their way into the river.
BLG don't have that many ultimates either. Shun looking forward as he pops his own, but out, caught up towards the bottom side. 369 flashing off the back line as well, and now Bin has to deal with three members of JDG as they start to collapse. Out looking for the damage on 369, but already one member of BLG is put in his grave. Follow it with two more as JDG win the fight.
How good is Ruler? He baits him. He walks up. He knows he has Cleanse plus Flash, double summoner spells Jinx. He gets Shun to W in on him, and he takes him into the rest of the team. Even with the Maokai ultimates, they draw him in. The rest of JDG pounce and they destroy BLG at that Rift Herald. These rewards are so big, mid and top turret plates, and the Rift Herald Vedius. What more could you ask for?
I mean, JDG have ballooned this gold lead, and they're in such a commanding spot. You can see the gold at the bottom, 1.8k lead for Knight. He's sitting at a 4-0-1 scoreline, and the domestic Knight showing up internationally at long last.
Oh my goodness, that's an eclipse already. That is quite early.
Knight is a monster right now. JDG, they executed the fight to perfection. The claim was made, are they the best team fighting team in the world? Well, we're going to see back in this fight why they're given that moniker.
Yeah, just look at this. Okay, so Knight goes for some poke, and then Ruler walks up just a couple steps in front of him because he knows he's got the safety there. And Shun goes for the combo on him with the ultimate goes down. Once Bin gets locked in on the front side, 369 you can see on the top side too. Ultimate onto Elk.
I mean,
splitting up the team. JDG dissecting BLG on two fronts.
We've seen so many great 369 flanks specifically on this Gragas, and that was another spectacular one. Separating Elk from the fight. That choke point in an ideal world for an Aphelios. Oh, maybe you can get that massive Moonlight Vigil. But because he was so distracted, he couldn't really contribute to the fight. And one at a time, JDG could mow down the BLG members. A healthy gold lead now, early game in their control.
And tracking this jungle Nautilus, it is going super supportive to the surprise of nobody. It's full support with the extra damage amp just for Ruler and Knight here. Let's see what he can do on the bottom side. The ult is ready for Kanavi. The flash is ready. So much CC available.
Kanavi, flash hook on, has to burn a summoner of his own to make sure that he escapes. But yeah, this Nautilus Emax does so much damage just by himself, especially if you can get all three procs of that Riptide to hit. And now with On having burnt his flash, JDG know where their bread is buttered. It's can we put more gold onto Ruler? Can we get this Jinx into a position where later on he'll carry? They'll give him a couple of plates. Shun trying to re-engage as BLG are looking for a fight. They get the knockback on there as well as Elk continues to put the damage down, but the Moonlight Vigil comes out and Elk finds one. If Burnham doing a lot of work in this fight. Shun low, Ruler trying to get excited. You just can't hide it right now as JDG trying to re-engage, but they can't find purchase.
So Knight has been consistently getting pushed in mid, and as they were threatening this bot tower, he started moving into the river, recognized Yagao wasn't on the mid wave, and said, hey, if Yagao goes bot, I can actually get more plates in mid. But because BLG recognized that Knight showed mid, they knew that they had a numbers advantage and could force the fight bot. So you look on the minimap, Knight is slowly moving back towards mid, and once the Herald drops, BLG sees a window with the arrival of Yagao that they can start a fight.
And that window, BLG know, because Ruler used both summoner spells in that Rift Herald fight. He's got nothing left, so the other two members of JDG have to block that Maokai ultimate for him, and BLG can just go through the front line. That being said, Ruler almost took down Shun, a lot of damage there. Rest of BLG blocked the shock blast there from Knight, so no return kill, but nice little answer from BLG.
You can see this damage on the mid tier 1 though. Knight consistently forcing Yagao underneath the tower. Has a whole level advantage, is a near 2k gold lead.
You gonna pick my Syndra against me? Most iconic champ.
I mean, we talk so much about how the Nautilus can be flexed between mid and support, and now Kanavi's added the extra dimension of what about jungle? What are you gonna do? And it's definitely, I think, caught BLG off guard, especially with how present Kanavi has been on the map. Dive bot, dive mid, in the team fights as well. He's been such a strong front line. Still going for that supportive itemization as well to give his team more damage.
I love it because throughout this tournament, people have had these preconceived notions about the meta, and they believe it is so rigid. But this game, look at it. We've diverted from the supportive mid laners back to carry mid laners, and so super supportive junglers here. Going to the extremes for Kanavi. Meanwhile, Shun, of course, on the Maokai, going with the first strike, get rich as quick as possible so you can, futures market in your early demonic, and he does have that, but it might be a little bit too late here because while BLG have the two dragons going for them, the third will be very difficult to get given the gold lead for JDG.
JDG 4,000 gold ahead right now. They are very much in the driver's seat of this game. You can see the Gale Force already complete for Rulo, and they're starting to try and spread that gold out a little bit. Really no lane for BLG has been able to find an avenue to get ahead in this game. Perhaps only Elk is even with his lane opponents.
And JDG smart with how they're playing the map right now. They've sent 369 to the weak side, which is bot lane, and they've allowed Knight, where the big power is sitting, to chip away at this top tower that they want to secure for themselves. They've made it very safe for him as well. You look at the minimap once more, and you can see all of this vision highlighted. Kanavi very deep into the enemy jungle. They may even look for a pick onto Bin. Perhaps it's a little too ambitious, and they would be overstepping their bounds, but this does give the safety for Knight to push in this wave. And now JDG can set the rights on this mid-tier 1.
Yeah, honestly, you feel like a god. When you have Eclipse speed, plus you have phase rush for you, plus you have flash, and you're the richest person in the game, Knight right now is actually just running Summoner's Rift, and he's coming down towards mid lane. So you know this tower is going to fall. It's so low.
Oh, and obviously knowing the Rangers very well, played against a bunch of Nautilus in his time as BLG look through and engage. They'll catch Kanavi, the depth charge comes down, and that will knock up Elk for a second. Ruler is nowhere near this fight as of yet, had to position over the wall to make sure he couldn't get caught out. And in the end, as Elk dashes forward with the Gale Force, both teams will just disengage.
Yeah, Kanavi there makes a heads-up play. You know, he blocks the Maokai ultimate, turns around, gets his ultimate onto Elk, makes sure he's not going to go down. Make sure Knight doesn't have anything getting even close to him.
So JDG have a pretty, well, I say pretty good position with the Dragons running about 10 seconds. BLG, after using a TP from Yagao, they do have that TP advantage with Knight's TP coming up relatively soon, but they want to be in position to contest this straight. Ruler continues to push in mid, he needs to be careful.
Heal comes out from Elko. Ruler going forward with the Gale Force. The Megadeth Rocket doesn't quite live up to its name, but we start to see perhaps signs of how that matchup's going to go.
Yep, forces the flash out of the Aphelios. He's so much more vulnerable now. BLG, they've got no real tank. Because Maokai, like we said, is going for the poke Maokai build, they don't have a front line for BLG. So Knight poke really, really stings, and it does not get healed back up here. So him being the only person with 2 items, they bully on through. Ruler going to shove them off that turret. They get the turret, they get the dragon. They do get a consolation prize on the other side of the map, as observers highlighted there in the split screen. BLG at least picking up the Rift Herald while they know JDG will be busy on dragon.
But now JDG's presence on the map, look at how powerful they are on these side lanes once again. Knight can push all the way up into the tier 2. I expect them to continue this level of pressure. Push in mid, then play through bot. You leave 369 to catch waves, and if you want to really commit to that tower, you can actually bring him from top into mid, then commit your 4 members down to that bot tier 2. But they're going to start maintaining this level of pressure, waiting for next dragons, and maybe even the Baron. But I think they're mainly going to wait for a pick before they can really commit to that objective.
BLG, it becomes trickier and trickier to find plays, because if you look at it, they have one form of engage. They have the Maokai, and if you have Kanavi standing in your face, and even if you get past Kanavi, you've got 369 with an explosive cask, and even if you get past 369, you have Missing sitting there being like, okay, I'll just charm you guys now. It's so difficult to ever get onto Knight and Ruler, who have such a large range advantage, especially when you have the lethal tempo stacked up on Ruler.
And then if they say, all right, fine, we don't want a team fight, we look at the side lanes. Oh, wait. Knight, if you even compare Knight versus Bin, he is massively ahead. Almost 3K here. 300 more gold to go, and that is going to be untenable in the side lanes.
JDG in a fantastic position right now. We kind of take a look at this map once again. They've sent Knight down to the bot lane. He does have TP. Yagao's TP actually coming in relatively soon. The ultimate from Kanavi, I think, used just as a zoning tool to give JDG the presence to push in mid. They're slowly moving their vision deeper. The game has slowed down a little bit. In an ideal world, JDG want to keep pressing this advantage. And BLG, the more time that they're given, at least they're given more opportunities to scale. Ideally, they'd love for Elk to be able to get that Infinity Edge before forcing a fight, because once they get that second item, they'll hit a really strong spike. And maybe that's a window where they can win out.
And there's a small bit of power in the Aphelios' kit. You don't really need to build too much attack speed, because obviously you get it from your passive. So getting the IE gives you a little bit more of a spike than perhaps if Ruler goes towards a Zeal item second, although it looks like Ruler might just be sitting on the Zeal for now as the trade happens in the top lane, 369. Sandwich between Shun and Bin, but can just dash across the wall.
Yeah, I love the stories that have emerged around the Zeal second, starting from Ruler, where Berserker was tweeting out that he DM'd Guma Yushi, and he was like, why do you build Zeal second? And Guma was just like, I don't know, Ruler does it, so, you know, he's the GOAT. Follow Ruler. He's definitely going to sit on that, build his Infinity Edge, and we shall see some crits flying through.
I think that's a good enough reason to do things most of the time.
I
Like,
mean,
if Chovy does it, I'm probably going to do it.
Well, the actual reason and why Ruler does it is because Zeal is such an efficient component item. It had to get nerfed in 3 different ways for live. If you're playing on live right now, it got its cost nerfed, it got both stats on it nerfed, the move speed and the attack speed. So he's trying to take advantage while he still can on the MSI meta here on 13-8.
So you'll notice once again, we talked about how JDG wanted to keep the pace of the game going, but they haven't really been able to push towards these tier 2s. I think that they were strong enough to do so. When you have like a near 5-6k gold lead, you really can start to threaten, but for now they've just taken their time. They want to hit spikes of their own. Big purchase just completed once again for Knight. Getting very, very close to his 3rd item as his tier continues to stack. And I guess they're waiting for the next dragon. Spawning in about a minute and a half. A lot of their vision right now is invested towards the top side river. They'll likely translate this down towards the bot side. They're actually sending Knight up towards top. I guess they want to keep him pressuring Yagao as the Herald now drops for BLG.
Shirelio's been used by Missing here. They want to try and close the gap onto Bin because they know he'll try and push in with this Rift Herald, and they have read him like a book. Kanavi's going to dive in here. Bin trying to do what he can, but in the midst of 3, there is nothing left but back to the fountain. The sweet release of Grayscale for Bin.
JDG in full control of the map. The Rift Herald does end up getting the tower, but it kind of sucks when no one's around to get local gold, especially on the outer ones. And Bin going down there, an easy pick for JDG. Still has 25 more seconds here for JDG to be able to rotate on up and control the rest of the map. So much so is the lead that the objective bounties are already here. JDG only have 3 currently. They do have their teleports ready for their side laners though, so BLG better be careful who they're messing with.
I feel like JDG can use this window to actually start off the Dragon, but right now they're posturing around the Baron. They're saying, oh, maybe you go and contest us for that Drake. Hey, look, you can be at Soul Point. Meanwhile, we'll sneak away this Baron. As they continue to clear out vision. JDG just taking their time, don't want to rush anything. They know the lead that they have. They know that they don't need to overforce. They've pushed in bot wave. They want Ruler to go back to base, spend some of that gold, and then come back out on the map stronger, and then look to contest his objectives. There's that Infinity Edge for Ruler, likely what they were waiting for.
Could be waiting on a Knight finishing up his next item as well. Is only the recipe cost short of finalizing his 3rd item.
We've all been there in the game in the domino effect where one person recalls, oh, I got to finish. Oh, I only need 300 gold for mine. I only have 100 gold for mine. And you get the chain reaction, but he's also about to transform his Muramana here. So not only can you get more lethality, you also get your transform of your Muramana, and holy moly, that poke from Knight is going to leave a mark. And as you already stated, having the Infinity Edge come in just means Ruler's job of cleaning up will be simplistic. Dragon taken away.
For the dive here, perhaps Knight is going to have to invest the flash to make sure he wasn't knocked against the wall with that Scout of the Week. Bin trading in the bottom lane, but it's been quite a quiet game for Bin, more on the receiving end of punishment than dishing it out as JDG now start to push in mid, unhooked, the TP immediately, the Flame Chomper's down, and that Lulu is not long for the world. JDG will secure it, and they'll look to continue pushing mid.
Just like that, JDG find themselves a pick and they're storming down the mid lane. The TP has come through from Knight and they're looking to secure an inhibitor.
Reminiscent of how T1 were able to take some wins against JDG earlier in the week. A single kill, a single team fight can absolutely open up your base, and that's exactly what JDG have done now. Now with Super Minions pushing in mid, securing the rest of the objectives on the map becomes a lot simpler.
And you can just see how comfortable JDG are, how calm they are with this lead. They know BLG like the back of their hands. Knight though, no flash,
no
okay?
Flash, the TP coming in. It's going to be another second channel time. Gets knocked back, no stun connects. Jun still looking for the chase, flash forward. Twisted advance, and now Knight is surrounded by BLG, the explosive cast. And Knight will not be found healed in the final moments to keep him alive through the unleashed power. And now Elk is just standing with a massive Gragas in his face. And JDG punish the over-eagerness of BLG.
It's a massacre as JDG will chase down on. None will be left alive as JDG will tear BLG apart. Knight will not fall. He will remain deathless in this game, and they're just looking to end it.
Oh my, I was afraid of this, fellas. In every best of 5 this year, JDG have faced BLG. They've improved. 3-2, 3-1, 3-0, and now starting out with another one.
In the battle to be the king of Ping Sheng, it is Knight who strikes first.
5-0-4 on the Jace. An immaculate performance from JDG from start to finish. And we didn't really talk about it much, but Bin has felt so confident on his jacks in so much of this tournament. And this is the first time where I really felt like we saw what the Gragas can do in this matchup. 369, just from start to finish, really had Bin's number.
And it's what we saw in the LPL finals as well. The reason Bin went home and started practicing tanks was because when he played carries into 369, he did not succeed. And I think we just see here how well coordinated 369 is with his team, but how well coordinated JDG is as a 5-man roster.
It's insane. Been able to conquer so many opponents, but not 369. You know, the one to block you, the one to make you question everything about your approach to the game.
Now, of course, Bin did predict a 3-2 in this final, so dropping a game is
all
nothing
right, all
unexpected
according to plan.
for him. Yeah, he's fine. He's just downloading the data, and of course, BLG. In terms of the start, they weren't expecting probably this Nautilus to go into the jungle. Bit of a curveball, and I think the Kanavi had a lot of presence in the early game, finding a lot of successful dives. And I will say that what we've seen BLG be super successful is actually their presence spot. And their first few levels, 1 to 4, where they were getting those advantages, getting those summoners out of Ruler, is where we see them kind of play to their comfort, play to their success, but we couldn't really see them capitalize on it moving forward.
It's been said so many times, but JDG are so good at playing defense for their carries. And they've got some of the best carries in the world in Knight and Ruler, so it's a hard thing to siege.
And for BLG, they have to find a way to crack through that defense. They have to find a way to get onto that backline. We'll see if they can do it, and we'll see what our analysts think of Game 1 of the Grand Finals.
Thank you so much, Medic. I think we expected to see a little bit more fight out of BLG with the trajectory they have had at MSI, but they're running into a foe they know very well, and unfortunately for them, their foe knows them very well. And it just looks like a completely different game when you see other teams floundering versus BLG. JDG never give them an inch.
And that, I think, is really set up both from the draft and the way that they were able to be very flexible with this Nautilus. Also the fact that Knight was so incredible on this Jace. Like, it felt like the whole team understood exactly how they wanted to try and achieve their goal, and they smacked BLG in those fights.
I also saw Nautilus for Kanavi. I think nobody would have expected that.
Yeah, and I think Kanavi, even going us back, I remember in 2021, when Udyr was debuting in the LCK, they actually credited Kanavi for coming up with this pick, right? So even way back, a lot of LCK pros held him in very high regard with the amount of creativity that he showed. And this draft, up until the very end, you have no idea who goes where, which makes preparing your early game really hard.
Yeah, it makes it incredibly difficult. I mean, they said it on the cast, but I think the last time it was played in a major region was Xmithie in 2016. So it's been a very long time since we've seen Nautilus jungle. And it is cool to actually see that come out. And especially when we've seen Nautilus so much, but every time it has been mid lane, as you say, you can't really predict where the lanes are going to go.
And it's actually, I think it was Aura7's jungler in like Plains had it as like a pocket pick, so now to actually see him make it all the way to the finals on the opposite side is sick. But I think it was so cool to see how he was able to use this Nautilus. I was talking to my brother as I watched the games. You constantly saw him just toss out an ultimate, see if it would work. Like, they were never actually committing with this Nautilus so often. They were waiting to see if they could find a play, then follow up, and it was so cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a bot lane role that Chronicler wanted to go over
let's
as
talk
well.
about it, because we knew they were going to do this.
Yeah,
and it worked for a little.
What I really want to highlight here is the problem that was there for T1, which was getting the bot lane set behind, started off working out. But then, crucially, like in many other series, Kanavi is able to equalize, right? He's able to, after Shun forces Ruler summoners, and the bot lane Alkin on play very aggressive, actually get the kill here, take down the enemy AD carry. And before this, I think Ruler was sitting on like 2-wave deficit. After this, he's comfortably back in the game. He's able to get ahead, get his item spikes earlier, and you see how well JDG kind of recovered from the early hit and then snowballed the other way.
Exactly. I mean, it really just has been the story of MSI, and we're going to have to see, shouldn't be able to make those plays and be able to cover on those dives, because if you're getting Ruler ahead, there just doesn't seem to be a way to come back.
And I think that was the big difference that we actually saw in Gen G and T1, is how good Shun was good at tracking these and getting into a position where he actually could try and prevent these. But the problem was, once you end up getting that lead in the bot lane, they're able to transition that so well into team fights and into the skirmishes.
Yes, and the Herald fight we want to look at as well. Yesterday it was a big focus going into the series, and we saw T1 and BLG brawling over it, but especially in the context of how this was going to go for JDG, we see that BLG had to make something happen.
Yep, absolutely. So we do have a play here. We're going to try to go over. We'll see if we can get started. We can just do it starting, pause. This is a fight that is really, really impressive. Again, we've talked so much about JDG. You're going to have to keep your eyes, I think, on 369 as well as on Elk on the other side. You know, how he actually plays around him in this team fight is really impressive. So we can roll the clip. And it's just about how they actually utilize the terrain, how they're creating space. You know, BLG knows that they're down early. They want to be able to create this play over at the Herald. They're trying to force us. So we can actually just pause briefly here. 369 again playing on this flank angle. And we see that Kanavi is coming out of base. So they don't actually want to just hard commit to a fight. They want to slow play it a little bit. They want to allow BLG to take their time here. Elk is split off from the rest of the team. And we have this 3-man squad right here for JDG. So we can roll the clip again. And it's going to be about these initial engages. Shun goes in, but it's the instant cleanse. They're peeling back. If we pause here, you can see that 369 is not actually overcommitting. He goes in from the side, body slam flash, you know, right here onto the carries, but he realizes that his team is going to be cutting back, so he's not actually fully committing to this. He's just playing in this area. He's creating that zone of threat. Knight is peeling back on one side, and they create this kind of zone control here where they have this bodyguards basically just in front of Ruler. You have to go through Kanavi, you have to go through Missing if you want to be able to get to Ruler, which is going to be incredibly difficult to do. And on the other side, it's access for 369 towards the BLG carries. So if we play the clip once more, just watch how 369 is actually playing this out. You know, Elk tries to get over towards him. He just ults him. He's kiting back. He procs, you know, the Q on him. He hits the Q. He hits the W. He's just knocking down Elk. While meanwhile, no one can actually get to Ruler. And I just think it's, again, so impressive how they play around him, how they're utilizing this terrain, you know, creating these zones of control, which is a fight that starts out 4v5. They dominate.
And there's so many elements to it, right? Ruler, and in general, I think we've seen the LPL doing this entire tournament, actually using his summoners extremely aggressively, baiting them to come in, and then the ebb and flow of them absorbing the blow, and then Knight and 369 coming around and both doing so much in allowing the rest of the team to play the game.
And I think that's why, especially when you're in these little choke points, the Jinx is so important. Because you can see Bin was actually about to leap strike onto the Jinx, but just managed to get those chompers down in time. Could have bypassed the whole bodyguard line, but it just gives you so much control in these fights, especially when you can play around those chokes.
And we see again why between those AD carries, Jinx has been favored in those situations. BLG did select blue side, so maybe they prioritize that. But we also have to crown our 1+ player of the game, and it was Knight. He had a phenomenal start. We talked so much about Yagao versus Knight in this series, but the first blow goes to Knight.
And I love the fact that they end up getting the Jace from him. He has always been incredible on these long-range picks. We had the Zoe in the past, now we're getting to see him on the Jace, and he was everywhere that he needed to be, picking up all these kills, getting that pressure in the mid lane, and then being able to allow that control from the mid lane to bleed into bot, and also when it got into these skirmishes as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's so big for the game state because you can't even then say, all right, well, we'll just play side lanes with Jax, because Jax doesn't even win side lane anymore because Knight was 3,000-4,000 gold ahead of his counterpart. So all BLG had as an answer there is a 5v5 when you're way down in gold and you're not really equipped to take it.
Additionally, what you're going to be looking for, right, if you're an Aphelios and a Maokai, you're behind, you're trying to get like the big all-in, the 100-0, but unless you can dodge every single shot blast, you're not even going to get that opportunity. A single hit from Knight, once he got fed, meant that whoever was in front of him had to peel out, so it takes away so much playmaking potential, and BLG never got to fight their way back into the game.
They never did. They didn't get to play their game maybe for the first time in a long time. They'll have to regroup because JDG deal out the first blow here in the MSI Grand Finals. And the Grind Finals maybe for BLG if they want to come back. We'll see you after the break.
Bottom lane knock up onto Elk, but he's behind the tower. The Flame Chomper's coming out, Missing almost dies to the turret shots. Ruler takes 2. He will not fall, but Missing will. But he's a tanky boy and he's difficult to kill. One more order will be enough, and Bin secures it. JDG now starts to push in mid, on hooked. The TP immediately, the Flame Chomper's down, and that Lulu is not long for the world. Twisted advance, and now Knight is surrounded by BLG, the explosive cast, and Knight will not be found healed in the final moments to keep him alive through the unleashed power, and now Elk is just standing with a massive Gragas in his face, and JDG punish the over-eagerness of BLG.